welcome to bike touring in Italy.
In late June 2018, we just cycled around the coast of Corsica and we were now en route to Italy, which would be our second country on our 6-month cycling adventure. After almost 2.5 months-ish of being in France, I couldn't wait to start the next part of the journey. New food, language, culture, new maps to buy. It's a really special feeling when you're about to start touring a new country. I knew it was going to take us out of our comfort zone, especially the language side, but I hadn't quite anticipated just how comfortable we'd been cycling in France. We arrived into the port of Livorno around sunset. Something I love about these ferries is that they let you ride straight off the boat, rather than having to walk them off like you do in the Calombrone ferries in Scotland. Off the boat, we tried to get our bearings. I'd already phoned ahead to a campsite in Calombrone, which is about 10 kilometers away. It was a bit stressful as we ended up getting caught up around some motorways in these big industrial zones, but we eventually got to the camp and it was fine setting up. Immediately, there was a different vibe in the campsite. There's hardly any tents or pitches, and it's mostly bungalows, which I found quite weird. You also had to pay for hot water, which I was 100% not into. The next day, we set off towards Pisa. We still didn't really have a plan, but we roughly knew that we were heading towards Florence and then from there, northeast towards Slovenia. Once we got to Pisa, we did what everybody else seems to do, which is go to the place with the leaning tower. Pisa is basically one of these cities that is completely dominated by a very focused tourist attraction. It's pretty wild how busy the tower is, and the rest of the city is fine, but it's hard to get away from the vomit of tourist tat everywhere. Everything is just so geared towards people visiting that one little spot in the city. Very much like Agra is in India, that the whole city seems to just support the industry of visiting the Taj Mahal.
We've arrived in Pisa, obviously, where they celebrate poor construction, which I don't really agree with. Everything here is squid, and I just think this is a waste of, I don't know, people's time more than anything. It's very busy, people are all here taking very original photos, just like we have. And we're in the area of Tuscany, and we are not really sure what way we're going to go. We think we're going to head up towards Lucca and then to Florence and then over some big hills, but we don't really know because we haven't planned anything. And we found out that there are not many campsites in the area, so we're going to be trying some more warm showers. So that's all for now.
When we started trying to plan out the route for the next few days in Pisa, I quickly discovered that unlike in France, where almost every town has a municipal camping, Italy has next to none, a tiny fraction compared to France. There's only really ones near the coast and in some of the more mountainous areas, and even then there's a lot of places that are just catered for bungalows and caravans and not really for people pitching tents. This instantly started to stress me out. Since we'd not really wild camped that much, we didn't have that experience under our belt. We'd been so comfortable in France just going to campsites and knowing that there was always going to be camping grounds wherever we went. There was now this pressure that not only did we have to plan out a route in a new country with a different language, but we had no idea where we'd be staying each night. To give us a bit of time to adapt to this new way of travelling, we opted for an Airbnb in Lucca that wasn't too pricey. As you come into the city, there's this big fort wall that was a lovely discovery to find that you can cycle right through it and up onto the city walls. We cruised around and found the apartment. After some serious language barriers with the Russian granny who welcomed us, we reluctantly tied our bikes up outside and got all our bags up into the flat. Lucca easily makes it onto the list of some of the best cities from the trip. It's a total vibe for walking and talking. It's beautiful, vibrant, it's also not full of tourists, which is a big plus for me. We walked about the city, got some pizza, and then strolled around the city walls as the sun set before heading home and getting an excellent night's sleep. The next morning we planned out our route to Florence. The idea was that we'd try and find a place that was nearby to the city where we could wild camp, so the next day we'd have lots of time to explore the city before moving on into the mountains. The host told us that the water pipes in the city of Lucca was so bad that everyone used these big communal water fountains for drinking water. We filled up our water bags and bottles. This seemed pretty common throughout Italy, and I actually really enjoyed that there was this old school water cooler vibe. In order to get to Florence from Lucca, we'd hoped to find the Eurovelo 5 route. If you look at Europe and type in cycling routes, you can see there's these things called the Eurovelo routes, and from a kind of bird's eye view they look amazing, but actually they're so dependent on country to country involvement in the project. So some places they're signposted really well, they're really well thought out routes, other places not so much. We did find reminiscence of the Eurovelo 5 route in that section, but honestly We were on and off it so much, it was just so confusing and was just slowing us down so much. We reached the Arno River, which would then take us all the way to Florence. As we cycled along the river, we started seeing some good places for camping and eventually found our first wild camp spot. I was super para about this, so I even made us eat dinner and put up the tent right at the end, just before it got dark, for fear of being spotted and getting told to move on. We were lucky because it just started raining afterwards, but we got a really good night's sleep, even though I was pretty scared about it. I've wild camped lots in Scotland before, but something about doing it in mainland Europe just made me feel really nervous. I know it's mostly fine, and we did do it a few times throughout the trip in each country, but all in all, it's just not something I enjoy that much. I reckon if I was on my own, or even with a friend, I feel much more comfortable with it. But being with Liliana, I feel so responsible about us being safe, and the risk of us wild camping always just made me really, really nervous. But despite that, pretty much every wild camping experience we had was fine, apart from one time in Bulgaria, which I'll get to a few videos down the line. In the morning we got up and packed while the mist rolled in, but it quickly turned into a beautiful day. We followed the river into the city, stopping off along the way to fill up our water bottles at a park fountain. Neither of us had been to Florence before, and admittedly I hadn't learned much from watching Jersey Shore. We're going to Italy! But it was a really spectacular place to visit, although extremely busy. If Pisa had a very focused area of mass tourism, it feels like the whole city of Florence has been engulfed by it. It's hard to find anything that isn't mobbed. There are so many Americans there as well, getting pure overwhelmed by everything. Everyone just seems to be walking about the streets, not paying attention to anywhere they're going. Genuinely, all the taxis have a constant beeping noise like a van backing up, because people just walk onto the roads without looking. Cutting about with our fully loaded touring bikes was a big hassle, but I think we were both content with just visiting for a few hours and then moving on. I messaged my friend Paul to get the best coffee spot and best pizza place, which he quickly supplied, and we headed for them. Just as a side note, if you're interested in photography and street photography around Glasgow, Paul has a great Instagram page that you should definitely check out. I'll put a link for it in the description. After months of disappointing pizzas in France, the pizza in Italy obviously was so much better. It also gives a chance to wash in their sink and brush our teeth, which is kind of gross for other customers, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? We washed in your sink. Get over it. We then scooted about, got a coffee, and I got a really banging sticker for my bike. And then we went to a bike shop to get some route recommendations. Florence is at the base of a big bunch of hills, which have a million routes to choose to go over. We were told that the Via Bologna would be ideal for us, so we set out lazily towards it around 4:30 in the afternoon. The climbing wasn't too rough, and it was fun to get back into the hills again. We found a good campsite that was more like what we've been used to in France. It was in this place near Mugello or Mugello? Who knows? The campsite was great anyway. It had toilet paper and toilet seats, which is a very, very rare occurrence when you're touring in Europe. At the campsite there was also this caravan couple who spotted our bikes and then invited us to dinner with them. Giuseppe and Fulvia were lovely, and we spent that evening eating pasta, drinking Prosecco and having biscuits, and just chilling out. Fulvia had been taking English classes, but also Liliana could just all of a sudden miraculously speak Italian. I think she studied it a bit in school, but because it's so close to Romanian and French is also a Latin language, she seemed to pick it up almost instantly, which was a bit bizarre for me. It really made communicating in Italy much, much easier. Well, at least for me anyway, because I didn't have to do anything. We told Giuseppe and Fulvia what way we were going to be travelling through Italy, and they even invited us to come and visit them in their town not too far off from the rough route that we were going to be going. This gave us a good destination to start heading towards, but basically the plan was that we'd go to Bologna, then we'd island hop past Venice in order to avoid the big huge industrial and farming areas that are in this part of Italy. After which we'd stop off in the town before then heading into the mountains in Slovenia. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope if you did, you'll give us a like and share this video and even subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you look forward to the next episode as we continue cycling through Italy. Ciao!